Hey everyone, welcome on to Branded. This is the podcast that takes you behind the scenes and beyond the brand. Today we are talking about the 5 things you definitely want your website designer or developer to be great at. Trust me, I have dealt with some people along the way that they claim to know it all, but yet there's like a missing piece of the puzzle that just can topple a whole project. And that is not something that I want to happen to you. And as a website designer and developer, this is something I think is super important. So, we're going to talk about the 5 things that you definitely want your website designer or developer to be really great at. So, your website is your brand's digital home base, right? It's the place where your customers come to learn about you. It's where people can check out your products and services. Hopefully, they fall in love with what you do and they buy from you, right? That's the whole goal of your website. So, having the right person or the right team to work on that project for you is super important. And what I want to do is break down the kind of top 5 things to look for when you're wanting to hire a website designer or developer. Because, in the end, I've got a really important question to ask you. And this is something you should be asking yourself when you're looking to get your website up and off the ground and launched. So let's do this. First and foremost, you want the person building your website to understand your brand. Now, it doesn't mean they have to know everything about it from the first moment you meet them, but understanding your brand, who you are, what you have to offer, you want a designer and a developer to understand that, to get it, right? They should understand what you stand for, your mission, your vibe, why you're there, right? Because your website should be a reflection of your brand story and your brand identity and personality, which is the last couple episodes of this podcast that we were just talking about. So hopefully you get a little bit of clarity on all of those things, and now you're ready to actually go build the thing. Whether you're building it yourself, you're hiring someone or a team to do it for you, those pieces, getting your brand's core values, mission, who your ideal client is, crafting the brand story, getting a tagline in place, implementing that story into all the different places you show up, those are vital pieces in order for a great website to really be a reflection of who you are and what you've got going on. So all of this work is building on each other, and it's just like phenomenal. So if you're fun and quirky, your website should be fun and quirky. If you're polished and professional, your website should be polished and professional, right? You want your website to be an extension of your brand. So the person building it needs to know how to translate that into design and ultimately functionality. So top quality, understanding your brand. And that's something that they can provide tangible evidence of, but it's also a feeling. You have to understand when you're having conversations with them, you have to ask yourself, do they get it? Do I feel like they get it? And if not, is that a reflection on something you could be doing differently, or is it a reflection of them? Right? Because it's a team project. Building and launching a website is not just the website designer who's doing all of it. And if it is, if you're not even part of the process, that's a red flag. Let me just throw that out there. So, first and foremost, someone who understands your brand. Secondly, you want someone who understands and designs from the perspective of the user's experience. So, if you ever see out on social media someone who's like, I'm a UX expert, that's a user experience expert. I didn't know that. I had to Google it. You guys, yes, I'm building a business and yes, I'm building websites. Doesn't mean I know all the lingo. It means you can be successful without knowing all of the crazy jargon for whatever kind of industry that you're getting into. You can find success along the way. I have always been a huge advocate of the user experience. I just never called it UX, which is apparently the X is for experience, right? But when you see someone who's like UX expert, that supposedly means that they are an expert in the user experience. And this is important. This is honestly one of the biggest qualities of how I design and sort of the place that I design from is typically from the user experience, right? I put myself in their shoes and I'm like, okay, if I was the one visiting this website, how would I feel about it? And so when you want to have some good user experience design, it's all about how you make the visitors to your website feel. Is it easy to navigate? Can they find what they're looking for, quickly, efficiently? Does it work smoothly on desktop and on mobile? We're going to be talking about that in a minute. That's like one of my biggest pet peeves. And honestly, the person designing the site for you should be considering the journey from start to finish. Because designing the website is one thing. Developing the website is one thing. Creating all of the other things that happen after someone makes a purchase, books a call, downloads a resource, whatever it is, whatever action they're taking, there is a number of other actions and designs and things that should be implemented on the back end that continue to support and make evident that you have a fantastic user experience like unfolding for them. So whether that's a drip campaign of emails after someone opts in for something, I'll give you an example. Recently, one of my clients, we had a big like put together of website and just concepts and all of these things happening because this huge event was going to be taking place. But a series of events happened and the event could no longer happen. But that does not mean that all of the work that we did, building the website, putting together all of these emails, all of the workflows, all of the opt-in forms, all of the different products. I mean, we created an entire, in-person retreat. We just didn't actually execute the retreat yet. Why waste all that work? We know the retreat is happening. It just didn't happen when it happened. Now it's going to happen in the future. So instead, we created a new user experience where instead of someone purchasing a ticket to the retreat, now they can just stay in the know about the retreat. And I went ahead and put like 8 weeks or something. I forget. This was a while back, but we put together like 7 or 8 weeks of a drip email campaign. So after someone opts in to say, yeah, this does sound really interesting, I want to go ahead and stay in the know for when the event is taking place. Now there's like 8 weeks of a drip campaign. So that's nurturing that user's experience. It keeps it top of mind. And when the event is ready to go live, guess who's going to get the first email, the first conversation about, hey, tickets are live. And because they've been continuing on down this user experience that has been designed for them, they're likely to convert immediately because they've been waiting for it. They've been ready for it. They've been nurtured and spoken to about it. They weren't just like, oh, I opted in and then like I never heard from them again. They'll forget about you. And that's part of the user experience. So you really want to make sure that when you have somebody designing your sites for you, they're understanding that they're designing from start to finish. It's the whole enchilada. And sometimes people, they'll straight up tell you like, oh, well, that's not really, in my wheelhouse. That's not what I do. Hopefully they have a referral for you so that way you can still have that piece of the user experience. Because as the business owner, you should have you should know, okay, from start to finish, I want to create this user experience. That may not always be the same person doing all of that work, right? If it's not going to be you, right? You might have someone who designs websites but doesn't develop them because maybe they're not quite so techy. You might have somebody that designs and develops websites, but they do nothing when it comes to emails and workflows. So you have to have that conversation. And ultimately, you can maybe get someone who is pretty well-rounded and can do all of those things. I feel like that's probably one of my biggest added qualities to working with me is that I do kind of span the entire user experience. It's not just one little piece of it. But having that good user experience could be the difference between someone staying on your site or just sort of clicking around, getting frustrated and being like, never mind, I can't find the thing that I was looking for. Like, forget it. I'm out of here. That's not what you want when people visit your website. That's completely against, that goes against the whole purpose of it. So the user experience and designing from that place, hugely important. So top quality, understand your brand. Second quality, the user experience and designing from it. Third top quality, responsive design. So what do I mean by this? When I say responsive design, it means that wherever people are finding your website, whether it's on an iPhone, a tablet, a desktop, a laptop, none of that should matter. Your website should still look amazing. And I come across so many websites. I'm on my phone all the time, as you probably are too, right? We're in this age of technology where we just live on our phones. We do everything on our phones. Unless you have an actual purpose to be on a laptop, you're probably not, right? So, making all of your websites compatible for mobile, tablet, etc., that's what responsive design is. It means it responds to the actual technology that it is utilizing in order to be seen. So, people are browsing on all sorts of different things, and a good designer knows that they need to create a site that's flexible and can adapt to these varying sizes of technology that people are viewing the websites on. And honestly, the functionality, no matter where they're visiting from, whatever kind of platform, they should be able to find the button that buys the thing or that downloads the resource or that books the call. If you have someone who's like, they're trying to, you got to pinch in to be like, what does that say? That's too small. Or, oh, now this overlaps this. And that is like one of my biggest pet peeves. And honestly, it's not that it never happens to me. It happens to me all the time because I'm designing websites all the time these days. But guess what I do? I go check my fucking work. I check my work. I open it up on my own phone and I look at every page and I'm like, okay, can I change the the padding as whatever, the extra negative space that's around some of these elements, right? Do I need to change the padding on it? Do I need to move it up or down? Do I need to make it bigger? Do I need to make it smaller? Can the text be bigger or smaller? Should it be bold? Should it not be bold? I'm quite literally designing two different websites when I'm designing a website, if I'm being honest, because I do the full design on my laptop, right? So it's full screen. I've got all the things. I can see everything. I'm placing it exactly where I want it to be based on the laptop. Always, always, I check my work on mobile because 9 times out of 10, there are multiple elements that don't look good on mobile. They need to be revised, resized, moved around. And there's all sorts of cool qualities in these website builders where you can actually hide some of the stuff that is only seen on mobile. You can hide it on the laptop versions. So you want a designer and developer that is willing to check their work and create a design for you that is responsive. And so, because you don't want your stuff to look like shit on mobile, so many people are using mobile phones these days. You don't want your stuff looking crappy. So, especially as the business owner, that's also a responsibility of yours is to speak up, right? Because there's so many things that are coming across our screens every single day. And speaking from someone who does design and develop websites, I miss stuff. I can't catch everything. I do my absolute best to, but I expect my clients to come to me and be like, hey, I just saw this. Can you go ahead and, tweak it, fix it, whatever? And I'm like, yes, thank you so much for pointing that out. I swear I scoured every single page. I just didn't come across it. I didn't see it. Sometimes you just miss stuff and that's okay. But responsive design with the person that you're hiring to, or the team that you're hiring to do your website design and development, so important. You want your stuff to look good on all the different devices that people are consuming it on. Check it yourself too. The fourth quality, SEO knowledge, search engine optimization. This is something that I am gaining more and more knowledge of, but it's something that I utilize in every site that I build. There's an SEO metadata area where we're putting in keywords, we're putting in descriptions, we're putting in locations, like if something is location specific, like a retreat or something of the sort, put in the city and state. Having these sort of qualities of the SEO optimization is going to help your website be found, be searchable, right? I mean, it literally says it in the title, search engine optimization. So your website designer should have a solid grasp of like what those SEO basics are. So that way your site can show up on Google or wherever people are searching, right? And then of course, having other qualities of like how the images are loaded. Sometimes an image or a video can take a while to get loaded. Sometimes they have to be compressed. There's all sorts of like sort of techie things that go into building a site, but you can have just these 5 things can be how you interview the person that you want to hire to do this work, right? You can get, hey, do they have a solid grasp of my brand? What's their experience with designing a site with the user experience in mind? Are they willing to do responsive design work and have my website look amazing on mobile and on desktop? Do they have SEO knowledge? And lastly, communication and collaboration, because like I mentioned in the beginning, designing your website is not a one-person job. It takes you as the business owner to be the one that is really running the show of the direction. Them as the designer and the developer, they are there to help you bounce ideas, right? Be that soundboard. So that way when you're like, I have these big crazy ideas of all these things I want to do, they can help think about the technical side of it and be like, yes, that's possible. Let me do some research and see if we can do that. Or no, that's just not actually something that technology is capable of doing. Let's figure out a workaround, right? So doing this as a collaborative effort will create a really beautiful result. Also, it'll create a result that truly reflects your vision. Because if you're not part of the process, there's a good chance that you're going to receive a website that you're like, whose site is this? This isn't mine. Because the designer and the developer, they can only do so much with like the direction that you point them in. You have to really be part of it. Be willing to dig in and be like, okay, so they asked me to really get clear on what I need my taglines and my headlines to be and, things like that. It's important for you to think about these things. And I'm not saying that you have to do it alone, right? Collab with them. Hopefully they're good at that kind of stuff, right? They're good at copywriting and the creating part of things. But having these ideas, being able to get feedback and work with you to create a site that truly reflects your vision, it takes both of you, right? So it's a collaborative process, and keeping people in the loop about the progress that you're making, those types of things. You want a designer that's going to keep you in the loop. Um, One of my very first experiences with getting my own website put together, I will say was not a good experience, and not I don't think by fault of anybody. I think it was just honestly, it was the last piece of this puzzle. The connection and the collaboration piece was the part that was missing. And so when I finally got the result at the end, I felt so detached from it because I was not really part of the process. Like I had to do a ton of work in the beginning to get all of like the copy over to the person. But then it was like crickets. There was absolutely no back and forth. There was no collaboration on like, hey, how does this feel to you? Here's a first draft. Let's run through it. Let's click around. Let's make sure things work. This was the piece that I was missing. And because of that, I scrapped the entire project. I was like, I don't even like it. I don't feel connected to it. I'm just going to make my own. And that's what I did. Now, I'm not saying that's what you're going to do, but that is what could happen if one of these 5 pieces is missing, because it may mean that the result is just not something you're connected to. You want your website to be an authentic reflection of the vision you have for your business. And these 5 qualities, you absolutely want your designer and your developer to have them, to be good at them, right? To be nurturing these qualities in themselves. So here's my question for you. Does your current website reflect the vision that you have for your business? And does it work like you want it to? If it doesn't, now is a fantastic time to revisit what parts of it aren't working for you, what parts of it aren't feeling good, right? Reevaluate some of this stuff and make sure that when you're ready to start working with somebody or a team of people to design and develop your website, make sure they have these kinds of qualities, that they connect with your brand, that they understand it, right? They know that they have SEO knowledge. They know how to make it mobile compatible and laptop compatible. I'm telling you, some people will say, yeah, of course I do that. Make sure they check their work and you check their work, right? You're part of this project too. And you're just as responsible for a beautiful result. Not that you have to do the work, but you have to be a sounding board, someone providing feedback from a place of like, this is my vision and this is what I'm looking for. Let's keep going. We're not quite there yet. Or, yes, that's exactly it. This is fucking phenomenal, right? So you're part of the conversation. And that's how I want to end this episode right there. So remember these 5 things, right? Understanding your brand, the user experience from start to finish, responsive design qualities, SEO knowledge, communication, and collaboration. You want your website designer and developer to definitely be good at these 5 things. I hope this was really kind of enlightening, helping you sort of see things a little differently. I know website can feel like a really heavy, big word sometimes for some business owners because it's something on their to-do list that either has been looming there forever or they have a super old site and it just doesn't reflect them and they never share it, but you're paying for it still. Those types of things. You should be able to use this and be really excited about sharing it with people. So I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode, and I'll see you next week for another good one. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Branded, the podcast. Please rate and review, and for more information, visit socialjanemedia.com. I'll see you soon.